Hi, my name is Tanza, and for my final presentation, I decided to talk about Parkinson's disease. So, a little bit of how this presentation is going to look. We'll start off talking about what Parkinson's is and some signs and symptoms that help define it. We'll talk about the causes of the disease, as well as how Parkinson's affects both the brain and body. And then we'll finish off with some different ways to help manage symptoms. So, Parkinson's is a really prevalent disorder. It is the second most common neurological neurodegenerative disorder, right behind Alzheimer's disease. Experts say that the prevalence is just going to double over the next 30 years. And because of public figures like Michael J. Fox and even Muhammad Ali, who have Parkinson's disease, awareness for the disorder is becoming more worldwide and more publicly accepted. So, what is Parkinson's disease? It's a progressive movement disorder of the central nervous system that worsens over time. It's typically it's always accompanied by degeneration of the substantia nigra, as well as the presence of Lewy bodies and the disruption of the basal ganglion circuit. But these symptoms are not as commonly known as these symptoms. Um, all of these motor symptoms are linked to Parkinson's disease, involuntary shaking, which is most noticeable at rest, more often than not known as tremors, rigidity in gait. This includes muscle stiffness, difficulty walking, which in turn is going to affect your balance and movement. And speech difficulties, slurred speech is one of the key signs of Parkinson's, as well as a decline in facial expressions. And this will really affect social interactions and quality of life of people suffering with this. So, what do we know about the triggers and the contributors to this disease? There's two subcategories of Parkinson's disease. There's genetic Parkinson's disease, which is not as common as sporadic, but it is very much a real thing. Scientists have found 41 different genetic regions that is associated with Parkinson's disease. On the other hand, there's also sporadic Parkinson's disease, which accounts for 90% of all Parkinson's cases. While it's more common, it's also way more complex, and there's not a lot known about what causes this Parkinson's disease. What we do know is that there are a lot of different risk factors associated with it. There are environmental risk factors, including your exposure to pesticides and different toxins, your living conditions, whether you live in a rural area or a more industrial area, and your exposure to heavy metals. Lifestyle choices like smoking, your diet and exercise, and different medications that you could be taking. And probably the biggest risk factor of all, previous head injury. All of these are associated with an increased risk of Parkinson's later in life. So, how is Parkinson's affecting our brain and body over time? This is our little roadmap of Parkinson's. So, all of those risk factors that we just listed are all contributing to the production of what's called oxidative stress and inflammation in our brain. And this extra stress that's put on our brain is helping to contribute to the misfolding of proteins. When these proteins misfold and accumulate and start to clump together, they're known as what's called Lewy bodies. These Lewy bodies start to attack and kind of kill off all of the dopamine producing neurons inside of the substantia nigra. Um, the reduction of dopamine production inside of the substantia nigra henceforth kind of stops communicating to the basal ganglia, which is the entire motor control center of your brain. And the loss of dopamine is what's causing all of the motor symptoms that we just talked about, the tremors, the difficulty walking, the decline in facial expressions. So, what can we do to treat Parkinson's? Unfortunately, there isn't a cure for Parkinson's disease, but there are many ways that we can help manage symptoms and improve quality of life for people who are living with Parkinson's disease. The most common medication given out to people with Parkinson's is L-DOPA. It's a medication that converts into dopamine to help restore the movement and the connection from the substantia nigra to the basal ganglia. However, treatment for Parkinson's is not a one size fits all kind of deal. More often than not, one treatment of Parkinson's is paired with another kind of treatment to kind of combat it and go at it. On top of that, treatment for Parkinson is adjusted over the course of the treatment because it's a progressive thing. You have to adjust the treatments to accommodate for the progressiveness of it. So another medication that is often paired with L-DOPA is MOAB inhibitors, which kind of prevents the breakdown of dopamine in the brain to help the dopamine and movement circuit last a little longer. Physical and occupational therapy is another very common treatment for or management form for Parkinson's. It helps improve quality of life and regain mobility for those every daily functions. And surgically, you can do deep brain stimulation, which is where you get electrodes implanted into your brain to send electrical impulses to help regulate that movement. And that's my presentation. Thank you so much for watching.